You know, hidden away, right inside the walls and vents of your home, there's this incredibly complex machine, and it's fighting a constant, unseen battle just to keep you comfortable. We're talking, of course, about your HVAC system. And today, we're going to pull back the curtain on that secret war.
So let's just start with a really big question. Is the single most important system for your comfort actually at war? Well, the answer is a resounding yes. And figuring out who, or maybe what, the enemy is, well, that's the first step to winning.
To really get a handle on this battle, we're going to zoom in on one of the toughest climates out there for an HVAC system, the inland desert. Think of it as a case study. The crazy challenges a system faces there are basically an amplified version of what your own unit might be going through right now.
Okay, this is where it gets really interesting. It's not just one of these things. The real kicker is how they all team up to create this perfect storm. We're not just talking about triple-digit heat. It's also the high winds blasting dust and debris all over the outdoor unit. It's that fine, sandy soil that can clog an air filter in just a few weeks, not months. And on top of all that, you've got these massive 40-degree temperature swings from day to night. It is just a relentless, multi-front assault.
And all of that translates into some serious real-world damage. That relentless sun exposure, it literally bakes the electrical components, making them brittle. Those huge temperature swings, they cause your ductwork to expand and contract over and over, creating serious stress. That fine dust, it gets past the filter and just grinds away at the blower motors. And the compressor, the very heart of your system, is forced to run for 12, sometimes even 16 hours a day. This is the real price of that climate battle.
So, how does this constant battle actually lead to a breakdown? Let's break down the most common, totally predictable ways your system can fail. Think of these as the ways your home's guardian can fall in the line of duty.
First up, the big one, compressor failure. The compressor is the heart of your AC, no question. When it's forced to run for hours and hours in that extreme heat, its internal lubricant starts to break down, and the electrical windings get stressed to their absolute limit. And what do you get? Warm air blowing from your vents, weird noises, and, yeah, one of the most expensive repairs you can possibly face.
All right, next up we've got capacitors and relays. Now these are small, pretty inexpensive parts that act kind of like the starter in your car. They provide that big electrical jolt to get everything moving. But in a high heat environment, their lifespan can just plummet, going from a normal 10 years all the way down to maybe just 3. It's a tiny failure that can bring the whole system to a grinding halt.
And then we have the slow killer, dust. It's this sneaky enemy that coats the outdoor condenser coils and just chokes your indoor filter. What this does is it basically suffocates the system. It's forced to work so much harder just to move air, which, you guessed it, drives up your energy bills and causes extra wear and tear on every single component.
And finally, there are the refrigerant leaks. Remember those huge temperature swings we talked about? They cause the copper lines that carry the refrigerant to constantly expand and then contract. You do that thousands of times, and you can get these tiny little microfractures, especially the joints. And that leads to slow leaks that just silently drain your system's cooling power.
Okay, so one of these things happens. You're now faced with the really tough decision. Do you repair it or do you replace the whole thing? Well, I'm going to let you in on a powerful piece of insider knowledge that can bring instant clarity. It's called the $5,000 rule.
The rule itself is so simple, but it's incredibly effective. You just take the age of your system, in years, multiply it by the estimated cost of the repair, and if that number is more than $5,000, you should seriously consider replacing the unit instead of fixing it.
It's a really simple 4-step calculation that anybody can do. Find the age, get the quote from a technician, do the quick multiplication, and then just compare that number to the $5,000 threshold. It gives you a solid, data-driven way to make what can be a very emotional and very expensive decision. Let's just walk through a real-world example. Let's say you have a 12-year-old system, and it needs a $500 repair. Okay, so 12 times 500 is $6,000. Since that's over our $5,000 threshold, the rule is telling you that putting more money into this aging unit probably isn't a great long-term investment. The whole point here is to avoid throwing good money after bad on a system that's already nearing the end of its life anyway. All right, so whether you decide to repair or replace, you're gonna need a professional. So what does a transparent, high-quality service call actually look like? Well, here's the playbook.
A true professional is going to follow a very clear 3-step process. First, a thorough diagnosis to find the real root cause, not just the symptom. Second, they'll give you a written estimate that you have to approve before any work starts. No surprises.
And third, after the repair is done, they'll test the system through its full cycles to make absolutely sure the fix is solid.
And beyond that process, you should be on the lookout for these other signs of professionalism. You know, a marked vehicle, clear upfront pricing, and an actual explanation of what failed and why. They should respect your home, use floor protection, and they should be verifying the technical specs, like airflow, to make sure the system is running at its best.
And here's something that is 100% non-negotiable. Any technician who handles refrigerant, which is pretty much all of them, is legally required to have an EPA Section 608 certification. Seriously, don't be afraid to ask to see it. It's the absolute baseline mark of a trained, legitimate professional who isn't going to damage your system or the environment.
So, we've covered the battle, the breakdowns, and what to look for in a pro. Now, for our final section, how you can actually take control of the situation and become a smarter homeowner.
At the end of the day, your system is really on one of two paths. There's the path of preventative maintenance, which leads to lower costs, a longer life for your equipment, and, peace of mind. Then there's the path of only calling when there's an emergency, and that leads to high costs, a shorter system life, and a whole lot of stress. When you lay it out like this, the choice is pretty clear, right?
But beyond just scheduling regular maintenance, I want to leave you with one last piece of expert knowledge. It's a super simple habit. It costs absolutely nothing, but it could literally save you thousands of dollars.
It's called the 3-minute rule. Here it is. After your air conditioner shuts off, you need to wait at least 3 minutes before you turn it back on. Why? Well, this gives the high pressures inside the system time to equalize. If you try to restart that compressor against all that high pressure, it's one of the fastest ways to destroy it. Now, most modern thermostats do this automatically, but if you're ever controlling it manually, just wait 3 minutes. It's that something.
So let's just quickly recap the most important takeaways. First, your climate is the enemy. Second, get to know the common failure signs so you're not caught off guard. Third, use that $5,000 rule to bring clarity to that tough repair or replace decision. Fourth, always demand a professional and transparent process. And finally, remember that a simple 3-minute pause can save your system's most expensive part.
Look, your HVAC is a silent soldier. It runs for thousands of hours every single year to keep you safe and comfortable. So the question this all leads to is, are you prepared to help it win its next battle?